This is just Bob Bowman, and I'm coming at you with another video. Right now, I'm in the middle of studying, but I had something on my mind, and I want to talk about it right quick before I get back to my studies. Back in 2021, when I was still going through a lot of turmoil in my life, and I didn't know which direction I needed to go into and where to turn, I was still making decisions based on other people needing me, even though they weren't really supporting me the way that I needed to be supported. And they became a burden for me. And then I understand now that because that was happening to me, I was becoming a burden to other people. And so a lot of individuals distanced themselves from me because I really didn't have a plan in place. I didn't have my life together in the way that I needed to have, even though I was functioning, even though I had a job and I had a car and I had my own place. There were still some elements in my life that I needed to correct and correct right away. And I remember I was listening to a radio show, and it was the AC Green Morning Show, and he talked about standing up for yourself and how men, especially in the urban community, we don't stand up for ourselves enough because we don't want to go through the adversity that comes along with it, and the shame and the disrespect and the isolation that possibly comes along with standing up for oneself. And I was already going through a transition at that point because I had stood up for myself for something, and I was nuclear rejected within the community that I lived in. And it was a very tough thing for me to handle because I had did so much within the community. I had gave so much of myself just for it to be rejected. And I didn't know how to handle that level of rejection, especially when I poured out so much good and so much of my energy into it. And so I had to learn that, you know, I was gullible. I had that thought process that's been taught to us a lot, especially in urban community, is like if you work hard and you do well and you put yourself out there and you say the right things, you don't try to step on people's toes, oh, you'll get the opportunities and you get the respect. No, sometimes, regardless of what you do, individuals will not respect you. That's one thing that I had to learn. It was a tough lesson because sometimes I would have respect for a person, I would have admiration for a person, and those people looked at me like I was nothing. And there are times when people probably won't say it, but they'll do it with their actions where they think that you're just somebody to do stuff for instead of somebody to appreciate and to treat with a level of respect, especially if you're a man. And then I know that in the so called urban community or the black community, the average hardworking black man is not respected a lot. And that's just the truth. And the reason being is because you don't make enough money to where you can call the shots, but you're not broke enough to where you can do where you're forced to do what everybody else wants you to do. You're stuck in that purgatory space. And like there was a song that came out a long time ago where they was like accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and don't mess with Mr. In Between. And the average hardworking man, even though it's a good thing for society, it's a good thing to have a middle class, we are treated as Mr. In Between. And that's just the fact of the matter. It's nothing that I can do about it, it's nothing that anybody can do about it. But there were times when individuals saw who I was and they saw that I had a good heart in spite of everything. They just did things to take advantage of me, and or they would take advantage of somebody else, and I would have to clean up their mess over and over again. And it happened within my family where one person was having their money taken from them, like stolen from them, and I was constantly replacing that money back. And one day I was in the car listening to AC Green and I had to deal with that individual. And I don't want to put too much information out there, but I was listening to AC Green and he was talking about standing up for yourself as a man. And I had this emotion built up in me already. I had them in my car and I didn't want to talk to them at that moment because I knew I had that emotion in me, but they could feel that something in me was building up and they kept on poking me and trying to get me to talk. And then when it finally came out, it came out in a way that I necessarily wouldn't have wanted to come out, but it was how I was feeling and my emotions at that moment, as well as the fact of what it is that I saw that was happening. I stood up for myself that day, even though it wasn't in a way that I wanted to stand up for myself. And I had to distance myself from certain individuals to a certain degree and kind of establish my independence from them. Like I had to cut those tethers off of me because they were draining me of too much energy. So that day, I really saw that, like, man, I should have been doing this years ago. Like, really standing up for myself. Like, really standing up for when I see something wrong, regardless of who or what it is. If they don't like what it is that I have to say, I still speak my piece. Let them say what they have to say. But I'm going to keep my boundary in place, regardless of how they think or how they want to maneuver things. If they want to pull other people to their side of it, they can. And if people want to take their side, they can. The only thing that I can do is make sure that I regulate my emotions, my thoughts, and my actions to the best of my ability and keep my boundaries in place regardless of how anybody thinks or what anybody has to say. And men, especially men that grew up in single parent households, we're not taught to stand up for ourselves. Most of the times we're told to shut up, do what we're told. Like if we try to stand up for ourselves, we get beat, as children. Because we are supposed to be the so-called workers of the community. And if you understand why they call it a beehive mentality, because most of the women in the urban community look at themselves as queen bees, regardless of what situation or circumstances they are in. They look at themselves as queen bees. And if you understand how the beehive works, they have certain men that they mate with, but then the rest of the bees are just worker bees to keep that queen bee pleased. And that's what they treat the average hard working everyday man as those working bees, and we're supposed to work for them. We're getting nothing in return. And there were other men on YouTube that talked about this, and they spoke about it with a passion or with an anger. And I'm not speaking with anger or passion because I understand that that's the mentality. I can't do anything about that mentality, but I have to be aware of that mentality and do the best that I can while dealing with that mentality, even if that means that I have to, like, make it to where I can keep my distance from the overall community or go elsewhere, or be able to maneuver in a way that I'm comfortable, that I can live with myself. And that's what this whole journey that I've been on was all about. Even when I first started doing these YouTube videos, it was a part of me standing up for myself and what I believed in and who I was as a person. It wasn't to hurt anybody's feelings. It wasn't to get back at anybody, even though there have been individuals that tried to paint it in that way, that I was looking to hurt people and I was looking to make people feel bad about themselves and things of that nature. And that's far from the truth. What it is that they wanted me to do a certain thing. I refused to do so. They wanted to see me get punished for it. And I had to overcome the punishment that they placed upon me. Am I fully over the punishment? No, I'm not. I'm still going through it. But I understand that that comes with life. It's part of challenges. It's part of obstacles. And even if I overcome what it is that I'm talking about, there's going to be another obstacle waiting for me. And this is something that goes on in life until the day that we all pass on to the other realm. And that's the reality of it all. But we have to be aware of what's going on, and we have to stand up for ourselves, and we have to keep our boundaries in place, and we have to definitely have to respect other people's boundaries. And I'm not saying that any of this is easy, because it's not, but it's necessary. And it's a part of taking ownership of yourself. When you stand up for yourself, you take an ownership of your boundaries. You're taking ownership of not letting people walk over you. You're taking ownership of not being gullible. And with that being said, this is just Bob Bowman. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm out.